What's up, guys? It's Markin, and today we have the breakdown of patch V40 for Paragon. Now, this patch is enormous. We are going to be doing separate videos for all of the changes, so you're not bogged down with some 45-minute video that you have to sit through and just listen to everything all at once. So at first, we're just going to go in order. We're going to start with gameplay changes first. That's going to be this video. We're going to have a separate video for card changes and a separate video for hero changes. And these changes are extensive. So without further ado, let's get into the gameplay changes. You can find the links to hero changes and card changes in the description below. Let's get into it. Alright, gameplay changes. So first off, Epic has completely changed the way that shields work. It used to be, you have a shield for 100 damage. Now, if somebody hits you with 100 damage, it takes away your shield, you're back onto your health. However, now shields function as extra health. So if you are a steal, you build 100 points of armor, and it mitigates, let's say, 50% of the damage. If you have a 100-point shield, but you have armor that mitigates 50% of the damage, that shield will now only take 50 damage. If somebody hits you for 100, it will only take 50 instead of previously the shield would completely go away for 100. So now you have a shield that will act as extra health for you, no matter where it comes from. Honor of the Pure, Muriel, doesn't matter where it comes from, it will act the same as you just having extra health. So this is a pretty decent buff for shields. It's not going to be game breaking or anything like that, but it's a pretty big buff. I think it's really going to put people like Muriel a little bit higher on the tier list. Maybe not to the top for supports, but it's definitely going to help her out. So next up, we have changes to the core. As it says here, the core encounter has been reworked to allow for a more consistent damage output and to encourage destroying multiple inhibitors before pushing to destroy the core. So basically, what happened before this patch is the core would deal out damage to everybody in its radius. It would do a set amount of damage, so let's say it would do 1,000 damage. If you had 10 units in the area of the core, it would separate that damage to all the targets in the radius, so each target, each ally, your heroes, your minions, everybody would be getting hit for 100 damage at a time. If there was 20 people inside of that, they'd be getting hit for 50 damage. Now, the core deals 110 basic damage to all enemies. It is no longer split. So it doesn't matter if you have one person under there or if you have 50 minions under there, you're still going to be receiving and taking the exact same amount of damage. However, the damage to the core is now basic damage, which means if you build basic armor, you can tank more shots. As we just spoke about with shields, if you build armor that mitigates 50% of what's getting thrown on you, the core will only be doing 55 damage a shot. So, more tanky characters a la Greystone will be able to survive the core a little bit longer than assassins like Shinbi or Countess, etc, etc. Another change to the core that they added is the attack speed. The more inhibitors you take before you attack the core, the slower the attack speed on the core will actually become. So they haven't given exact values on the attack speed of the core, but say it's once a second the core activates when all 3 inhibitors are up. Or I should say so let's say that once one inhibitor's down, the core's attack speed is 1 attack per second. So it's bang, bang, bang. As you take out the second inhibitor, that attack speed will get cut in half. So now it's attacking once every 2 seconds. So it'll be bang, 1, 2, bang. And as you take out the third inhibitor, it'll be even lower. So like I said, they haven't given out exact times and exact attack speed on the core. We're going to have to wait until Tuesday when the patch is actually released to see how this works. But this is going to make it a little bit more difficult to take the core because you do get an extra damage put on you. But if you are just soloing it as that Greystone, you are going to be able to last a little bit longer. So this is a little change. It's not going to be a huge impact on the game, but we'll have to wait and see how it actually works. All right, next up we have the jungle changes. Now at first these seem a little lackluster, but I think it's going to be a pretty big change once you start crunching numbers. So we have updated melee jungle minion behavior so that they are more difficult to kite and avoid their damage entirely. If you've jungled before, as you know, best way to jungle is to kite your minions. You continue to move backwards as you attack, the minions cannot reach you, you can reach them, you basically stay at full health as you're attacking them. Now this added a little bit of skill to jungle, because if you're going against somebody who was a rookie jungler and was not familiar with kiting, you could get leaps and bounds above them in terms of CP and level, because you're killing more camps and taking less damage where they're just eating all of this damage. So minions will now more reliably hit players who are a short distance away from them. This does not mean you cannot kite jungle minions anymore. You are still going to be able to kite them, it's just going to be more difficult to do so. So this is just increasing the skill gap on kiting minions. This is really going to show the best junglers compared to the worst junglers. And now if you're a great jungler and you really understand kiting, you're going to get out ahead of your opponent. Now what they've done for this, since the minions are going to be dealing more damage to you because it's going to be more difficult to kite, they've reduced the white jungle minion damage per attack to 6 from 7. So that means every attack from a white camp, you're getting hit for 6 damage instead of 7. They've also increased the minion CP bounty to 85 from 73. So now every white camp that you kill, you get more CP. Plus, they've increased the amount of Amber Link CP contribution to 35 from 30. So now every time you kill a white camp, it goes right to the Amber Link for 35 instead of 30. So you're getting more CP from killing white jungle camps. However, it seems like it's going to take you a little bit longer and you're going to take a little bit more damage because you cannot kite as easily. So basically what this means is if you're a pro jungler, if you really understand kiting, you're going to be able to get a lot more CP for yourself and your team than you were prior to this patch. So I think the white jungle camps are going to be a lot more important now. On your first jungle clear, you're going to be able to clear all 3 white camps and the green buff. And by about 4 minutes, once you take the extra white camps, you're looking at already being at 3 CP back at base. All right, let's move on to gold buff. Now gold buff in the prior patch was... Now gold buff, since Monolith came out, really was designed to give those carrying supports in safe lane the ability to get a little bit extra CP in lane and really help them out. However, it seemed like not a lot of people were taking it. It was really never contested by the offlaner, and it took a little bit too long to take it. So what they did with gold buff is they replaced the gold buff monster with the gold variant of the river buffs. So the little bugs that are flying around that have 150 health, that's what's going to be in safe lane now. So it's going to take a couple hits early game to take it, and it immediately gives you 300 CP when it's killed. Now the gold buff, as is now, pre-patch, gives you 20% increase on your CP. So every last hit you get on a minion, you get 20% extra. In order for you to receive 300 CP, you'd have to clear 2.5 minion waves with perfect last hitting to get 300 CP with the gold buff. This is going to make it a lot easier for you to just walk over, pick up gold buff, you take almost no damage from it, and get that 300 CP right away. However, it's also going to make gold buff a lot more contestable with offlaners. As we'll talk about in the future hero changes video, Kalari got a huge rework now. They really are pushing her to be an offlaner. And if you have a stealth Kalari, she can just walk up, 2-hit your gold buff, and take your 300 CP without you even knowing. So this gold buff now is going to be on a 2-minute timer. It's giving you 300 CP every 2 minutes. So this is going to be a hot item in safe lane. It's going to be easier for offlaners to get. It's going to be easier for safe laners to get. And it's actually going to perhaps change the jungle a little bit. Is your jungle going to come over and help you get that CP? Are they going to go after the river camps? It's going to add a little bit more strategy to the game. And I think it's all for the better. Next up, we have green buff. Not a huge change on green buff, but it's definitely worth noting. They increased the damage reflect to 20 from 15. So as you know, when you get green buff, you get a shield on yourself. Every time somebody attacks you, heroes or minions, they get damage reflected to them. The damage used to be 15 every single attack. Now it is up to 20. So it's really going to help you with farming. If you go try and take a white camp, you're now reflecting 20 damage to them every time they attack you. So as we spoke about earlier, it's going to be tougher to kite, so they're going to hit you more, which means they're going to damage themselves more. This is really going to help with clear time in the jungle. You may even, instead of taking your 3 white camps and then the green buff early game, you can take 2 white camps, then the green buff, then go back and take a 3-stack white camp with green buff. Get yourself some extra CP, and the damage is going to be a lot better against the minions. So we'll have to see how that works. Next up, they reduce the explosion base damage from 80 to 100. So the shield, once it is depleted, explodes. It usually does 100 base damage to any enemy around you, minions or heroes. They've just reduced that to 80. So the shield is going to reflect more damage, however the base damage of the explosion is going to be set a little bit lower. Also, they reduced the explosion damage per hero level to 13 from 15. So that scales with your hero level. So if you're hero level 1 with gold buff and the explosion happens, it's going to be less damaging than if you're hero level 15 and the explosion happens. So in short, they're making the reflect higher, so it's going to be easier for you to clear camps, but they're also making the explosion a little bit less damaging, so it's not going to be as huge of an impact early game as it is now. Now next up, we'll get to the raptor camps. They changed the respawn timer to 5 minutes from 4 minutes. All that does is push your raptor camps back a minute. They also reduced the raptor CP bounty to 650 from 800. So 800 is almost a full card point for every raptor you get. It was a really big point of contention early game and throughout the entire game. Now they kind of scaled that back a little bit. 650 CP is good. Still definitely a good amount, but it might not be a huge priority like it was for that 800 CP. And the respawn timer of them changing to 5 minutes from 4 minutes, they're just not going to be up as often. So you might not be running over to raptor camp early game and trying to 5-man these raptors immediately. However, after a team fight, after an ace, you're still going to want to pick these up to get your carries out ahead more and more. And finally, in the gameplay changes, they've changed Orb Prime. Not a huge change to it. Basically, it lasts 30 seconds longer. It used to last 2 minutes. Now the buff lasts 2.5 minutes. Now I think this is a pretty good change because Orb is such a important thing to take on the map. It's such a huge objective to take, and having that last for an extra 30 seconds gives you the ability to push down that extra tower, that extra inhib, or even the core. I think it's really going to help with pushing to end games. So guys, that is it for the gameplay changes. Like I said, we're doing a separate video for jungle changes, and we're doing a separate video for gameplay changes. So check those out in the description below. Go ahead and click on that. But V40 is a huge patch. There's so much changing, and this is just a small bit. So check out the other 2 videos. Let me know what you guys think of these gameplay changes in the comments below. Thank you for watching, guys, and as always, stay active.